Hello and welcome to The Download from Wise Woman and Wordsmith, where insight meets inspiration. A space for creatives, dreamers and visionaries ready to spark new ideas, ignite purpose and reimagine possibilities. Here we share downloads of wisdom, stories and strategies to help you thrive in your creative journey. I'm your host, Jill Marshall. Tune in, connect and let the magic unfold.
Show you tomorrow.
Have you ever been halfway across the metaphorical tightrope? Business plan in place, project mid-launch, podcast three-quarters scripted, and felt that moment of wobble, that quiet inner whisper asking, is this still right? Or more provocatively, was this ever right? Today, I want to talk about mental liquidity, a term Stephen Bartlett uses for the superpower of changing your mind without ego or attachment, and the deeper, messier, more magical companion it requires, intuition. Because sometimes pivoting is the smartest move you can make. Sometimes it's self-sabotage in disguise, and sometimes it's something else entirely. So this episode is for anyone standing at a crossroads or clinging to a direction that no longer feels like it fits, who's wondering whether to press on or let go. So how did this start? It was a post on LinkedIn in which Bartlett says that the best founders he's invested in aren't the ones with the loudest vision or the slickest elevator pitch. They're the ones who can kill their own ideas. Not out of fear, not because they're flaky, but because they have mental liquidity. The ability to say, I was wrong. Now that struck me because, as the Diary of a CEO host says, so often in business and in life, we treat our beliefs, ideas and our projects like possessions. We keep polishing them, we defend them, we put them on display. But what if we treated our beliefs like tools, useful until they're not, replaceable when the job changes, held with confidence but not cemented in place? In a phrase which I think will remain in my inner dialogue forever, what if we have strong opinions loosely held? That's what mental liquidity is. It's the difference between being married to a method and married to the mission. And here's where intuition enters the chat. Because sometimes it's not about being wrong or right, it's about sensing that something has shifted. In the market, in the timing, in you. Robert Holden has whole books related to the shift, and it really can happen when you're aware of it. This all resonated for me because I'm at that moment of letting go of some stuff, reshaping some other stuff, and forging forward with certain stuff. So I'm very much in that space of mental liquidity. And I'm feeling the expansive and exciting nature of it as I pivot and shift and recognise where things weren't working and where they are. But as I'm not ready to share all the deets, let's talk instead about Sarah Blakely, the founder and creator of Spanx. That's control underwear for anyone who might not be aware. Now, before Spanx became a billion-dollar brand, Blakely had no background in fashion, retail or business. What she did have was a persistent inner knowing that her idea, footless pantyhose or tights that created a smooth silhouette underclothes, this was something women needed. After cutting the feet of her own tights off to wear under white trousers, she really felt the product had merit, but when she pitched the idea to manufacturers, she was repeatedly rejected. Somehow, though, intuitively, she knew not to give up. She persisted, often relying on gut instinct rather than conventional strategy. Her big intuitive leap came when she cold called a hosiery mill in North Carolina. The male owner initially said no, but later that night he mentioned the idea to his daughters, who told him it was brilliant, and he called her back. Blakely also trusted her gut in naming the brand, choosing Spanx for its zippy sound, based on a strong feeling that the name needed to have a strong K sound. And then in packaging it in bright red to stand out from the beige and grey of the underwear aisle. She maintained full control of the business, she resisted early buyouts, and she ignored conventional marketing strategies in favour of grassroots promotion, including, cleverly, sending products to Oprah's stylist, which ultimately led to a feature on the Oprah Winfrey Show. All this came not from data, but from deep, intuitive trust. Blakely became the world's youngest self-made female billionaire, and she often credits her success to tuning into her gut over expert advice. That, my friends, is business intuition. As I've explored before, intuition isn't just some mystical whisper from the universe. It's your body's highly tuned pattern recognition system, processing more data than your conscious mind can keep up with. Years of experience, interactions, and observations get encoded into your subconscious, and what emerges is a nudge, a twinge, sometimes a quiet knowing. Scientists, yes, science is involved, they call this somatic markers, physical signals that show up in the body before the brain has consciously made a decision. Your intuition is your internal supercomputer running a million simulations in the background, and often it knows before you do. But intuition can be tricky because it doesn't always scream. Sometimes it gently withdraws, sometimes it mimics fear, and sometimes it sounds a lot like resistance. So how do we know what's true? This is where we dig deeper. Is it intuition or something else? Gay Hendricks calls it recognizing the upper limit problem, that invisible barrier we've hit when we're about to expand, financially, creatively, emotionally. Suddenly we get sick, or bored, or we pick a fight, or we sabotage the thing we've been working towards for years. Our system, you see, wants safety, it doesn't want growth. So we jump ship. We convince ourselves the pivot is intuitive, when really it's fear in costume. And yet sometimes that very same feeling is a genuine intuitive hit that it's time to stop, shift, or step away. How do we tell the difference? How do we discern between the trickster and the truth? The answer, I believe, is discernment. It's listening not just with your ears, but with your whole being, and listening through the layers, asking not just, do I want to let go, but also, what part of me wants to let go, and why? Is it the part of me that's scared of success, or the part of me that's exhausted from dragging around a dead idea? Is it the part that's afraid to be seen, or the wise inner self that knows this isn't actually my mountain to climb? Sometimes intuition isn't the dramatic voice of leave now. It's a quiet release, a loosening of your grip, an invitation to pause. Sometimes intuition says, park it. Don't abandon it, not sabotage, just set it down for now. In my own business, there have been times when I've pushed through out of ego or out of people-pleasing, believing persistence, or people-pleasing, was a virtue. But really, I was probably in what Bartlett calls ideological cement, locked into a belief that I'd invested too much energy in to question. Other times I've walked away, when, in hindsight, I just needed to sleep, to eat, or call a friend, ideally a friend who knew more about what I was tackling than I did. That's why intuition isn't a single voice, it's a counsel, and to hear it clearly, you need to create the space. On the other side of the coin, what's really at stake when you don't listen to that voice? Let me show you what can happen when we ignore the nudge. Because here's the hard truth. When you completely ignore that quiet inner nudge, the gut feeling, the twinge of misalignment, the somatic signal saying not this or not now, you don't just delay clarity, you often compound the damage. In business, and indeed in life, this is where we go pouring good money after bad, staying in a failing venture because you've already invested so much, even though the writing's on the wall. But what's really at play is ego, or facade, or fear, or inertia, or the fear of letting people down. And that can get expensive, financially, emotionally, and relationally. Let's look at some real-world examples. Elizabeth Holmes ignored warnings from whistleblowers and experts alike that her blood testing technology didn't work. She doubled down instead of pivoting or coming clean, and the result was not just the collapse of a $9 billion company, but legal convictions, reputational ruin, and the betrayal of partners, employers, and patients. Had she truly listened to others, and most likely to her own deeper knowing, things might have ended very differently. Or how about a Kodak moment? Kodak actually invented the digital camera in 1975, but they shelved it out of fear that it would disrupt their profitable film business. Leadership ignored the intuitive sense of where the industry was going, and by the time they tried to catch up, they were obsolete. Their refusal to act on a future-facing hunch led to bankruptcy and the loss of market leadership and who knows what else. As for someone who ignored not the opportunities but the warnings, well, during the Deepwater Horizon crisis, then CEO Tony Hayward ignored, or at least downplayed, early signs of danger. Internal reports and expert advice suggested growing risks, but the company failed to act decisively or transparently. The result, a catastrophic environmental disaster, billions in fines, and a permanently damaged brand. The nudge here was literal data and collective instinct, but it was dismissed. So when we ignore our intuitive knowing, we don't just risk failure, we risk alienating our team, we risk damaging future opportunities, we risk building resentment and regret. But when we listen to that nudge, even when it's inconvenient, even when it requires a U-turn, we open the door to integrity, alignment, and long-term success. So, the next time you feel that subtle tug inside, don't brush it off. That might be the wisest voice in the room. So back to Stephen Bartlett's term, mental liquidity. This isn't weakness, it's mastery. We live in a culture that worships certainty. We reward conviction. We reward loud voices. We quote leaders who say never give up. But sometimes never giving up is the problem, because real strength is adaptability. Mental liquidity is the art of pivoting without shame, changing course without collapse, admitting you were wrong without losing your sense of self. This isn't wishy-washy, this is strategic evolution. Think of a founder who realizes a product isn't working. They've spent months building it. They love the design, but the data says no one wants it. Do they delete it without drama, or do they double down out of pride? The best ones pivot fast. They don't see it as failure, they see it as feedback. They are married to the outcome, not the original method. And that's true in creative projects, relationships, even spiritual growth. Many a time I've seen authors with competing series coming out who insist on sticking with their original idea even though there's no market potential for it anymore. Time to pivot. Time to do what's good for you. And if you don't want to give it up, find another way to produce it. In times of decision, especially when you're questioning whether to let go or hold on, I always come back to Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 agreements. The first, be impeccable with your word. Secondly, don't take anything personally. Thirdly, don't make assumptions. And fourthly, always do your best. It's that second one for me, don't take anything personally, that often clears the fog. When we're attached to a project or an idea, we can confuse its success with our worth. If it fails, we fail. But that's not truth, that's ego. If you release the need to take it personally, you open up the space to listen, to reevaluate without shame, to change your mind without losing face. The best founders, creators, leaders, they don't equate letting go with giving up. They equate it with growing up and growing out. So, how do you cultivate that blend of intuition, discernment, and mental liquidity? You pause. You check in with your body, your breath, your truth, and you ask yourself, what sensations do I feel when I think about continuing? What sensations do I feel when I imagine stopping? Am I holding on because I'm afraid to be seen, or I'm afraid to start again? And what outcome am I truly married to? Is this the best method? Is this method still serving it? And then ask, if I wasn't scared, what would I do? This isn't a one-time journaling prompt. It's a practice. Like stretching a muscle or lifting weights, you build your mental liquidity over time. You get better at letting go before you hit burnout. You become braver at saying, "This isn't working," before the market tells you. You trust that what you release creates space for something more aligned. So, here today is my invitation to you. If you're standing at a threshold between pushing on and walking away, between an old identity and an evolving one, between the known and the unknown, pause, breathe, listen. Your intuition knows, your body knows, your higher self knows. And your success, your real soul-aligned success, depends not on being perfect, but on being present. This week, may you let go of what no longer serves you, not with shame, but with sovereign grace. May you trust the pause. And may you remember, mental liquidity isn't the absence of conviction, it's the presence of wisdom. This has been The Download. I'm Jill Marshall, and if this episode stirred something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a review, share it with a friend, put it on socials, or just sit quietly and notice what you feel. Because the best insights often come not from what's said, but from what stirs inside you once the words are gone. Until next time, stay curious, stay fluid, have strong opinions loosely held, and trust yourself more than ever.